All right. Hello, lovely YouTube people. I am Faz. This is Fazlifts. And today I'm going to be talking to you about periodic weight resets. So what are we talking about? So I'm going to give you guys the preemptive summary. I know you're all busy, you have busy lives. So in a contrary move, I'm going to give you the source right now and then carry on with the rest of the video. Firstly, we are talking about cheating progression in any number of ways, which I'll explain as we go through the course of this video. We are essentially giving the false impression of progressive overload. We are adding weight to the bar by sacrificing one or more artifacts of training. That could be, for example, range of motion or rep cadence. The solution is to drop the load and work back up correctly. Now that's out of the way, let's actually get on with the rest of the video and let me explain to you what is going on and why it's important. There is a particular type of stress which we know causes a muscle to grow in the way that we want it to, and that is to hypertrophy. Our bodies are built, have adapted, whatever you want to say, to adapt to pretty much any type of stress that is handed to us, unless it's death inducing. We have an amazing capacity to adapt. It is incredible, absolutely incredible. Our ability to learn, our brains actually adapt. Our ability to be out in the sun, our skin adapts. We have tremendous adaptive abilities in almost every circumstance. The human ability to adapt is actually incredible. We want a specific type of adaptation when we go to the gym because we want the guns. What we want to do is avoid certain other types of stress, and we want to funnel all of our available resources into growing muscle. We know that growth of muscle in the way that we want is caused mostly by a muscle tension. So the solution is we want to maximize muscular tension as much as possible while minimizing everything else. Now, I know that some of you will now start to think of the whole volume, frequency, intensity relationship, and that's a great topic, but it's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about practical execution in the gym, not this theoretical volume frequency thing. Okay, so put that out of your mind for a minute. Now, the result of this growth over time is generally displayed as increased strength. So larger muscles generally have a capacity to display that growth via increased strength in the gym. So the growth is displayed via an increase in strength. This is, however, a really nuanced topic. It's evidenced by the sheer number of trainees who get this part wrong. Progressive overload is two things. Firstly, it is the result of your previous week, month, year, depending on how advanced you are, training and diet. Whether you can add weight to the bar or add reps or show some kind of improvement is really dependent on what you did prior to coming to the gym. So what did you do that week prior, that month prior, that year prior? That's what it's about. The analogy would be you get up in the morning and you weigh yourself, okay? The act of weighing yourself is not a demonstration that you lost weight. Oh, I got on the scale this morning. That helped me lose weight. No, it didn't. What helped you lose weight was what you did the previous day. And it's very similar for progressive overload. It is the result of your previous week, month, year. Now, the second thing is, it is also one method of inducing more stress for the following week. Okay, so just because you are able to gain strength one week doesn't mean that you have to add weight that week for the next week. Progressive overload can be any number of things. It could be adding weight to the bar, it could be doing more volume, it could be doing something else to induce the type of stress you need to cause further growth. So other methods include rep cadence, rest periods, form improvements, and better mind-muscle connection. So those are all ways that you can induce more stress onto the target muscle. I think there's a general misunderstanding that progressive overload is only via weight. There are multiple ways to impose more stress on the muscle. Now, this would be potentially a different topic if we were talking strength, potentially. But for hypertrophy, it's much more nuanced than just adding weight, just adding reps. What are the problems of sacrificing any of these artifacts for just adding more weight to the bar? What is the problem with sacrificing rep cadence, rep speed, just so I can add more weight to the bar? The problem is this: we are running away from what actually imposes the most muscular tension and causes growth. Essentially, we're running away from hypertrophy. So it's a big problem. Now, you might say, well, just add weight to the bar, things will work out. But the issue is, if we are adding weight to the bar and we are actually reducing the muscular tension, or at the very best, we're not increasing the muscular tension, we cannot expect more growth. In fact, we can probably expect less over time. So essentially, we are doing the opposite of what we want for hypertrophy, even though our numbers in the gym are going up. Other problems are we may also be overly taxing recovery. And both of these problems can lead to stagnation. Let's take a very common example of the bent over row. Now, with the bent over row, it's quite easy to cheat the weight in a way that's not conducive to growing the back. Now, I am of the opinion a certain amount of controlled cheating to put more stress on the back is fine. But what a lot of people do is, rather than trying to cheat to put more stress on the back, they are cheating to lift more weight up. And in the pursuit of lifting more weight, they're actually not putting more stress on the back. They end up putting less stress on the areas of the back that they want to grow, and really more just in swinging the weight and using the lower back. So it becomes an issue, because while the numbers go up, the stress on the muscle doesn't, which means growth inevitably grinds to a halt. And also, you end up using far more weight than is necessary. Another very common one is half squats. Everyone has seen this at some point or another. A guy at the gym who's half squatting a weight that you know full well he is not capable of doing. How has that happened? Over time, he has just sought to add weight to the bar because he's been taught adding weight is the solution to all the problems, right? So he adds weight. Sometime over the course of the months and the years, he's gotten away from what actually causes muscle growth, and that is the full range of motion. All he's really doing is just quarter squats, and he thinks he's doing the right thing in his mind. But what he's really doing is he's overly taxing his recovery. He's putting a lot of spinal loading on, which means he's not getting the best bang for the buck in terms of muscle to recovery, and it causes problems. Now, I think another large problem here is that this stagnation also can lead into some people going down the path of drugs. And I want to just talk on that for a second as a bit of a side note. So drugs is an interesting one because we're presented with the hero dilemma. Now, the hero in this situation is your favorite pro bodybuilder, the guy you look up to, the guy whose training you emulate. He could be your favorite pro bodybuilder, he could be an influencer, or quite simply, he could just be the projected version of yourself, the you that you either want to be or the you that you see yourself as, but currently reality doesn't match up to it. At a certain point, most people are exposed to the fact that who they want to be doesn't quite live up to the reality of who they are. And that, for many people, can be absolutely crushing. And this occurs in a number of different fields. One of the fields that I've seen it in, it can occur when young men, particularly, leave education and leave the early parts of their life without really any opportunities. So when they're young men at 20 to 21, they're out there looking at the world thinking, here I am. I now am an adult. I demand respect. I want all the plaudits that come with being a member of society. And because they have not created enough opportunities for themselves via either education or experience, they get nothing. And that can be absolutely crushing. And it's one of the things I used to say to my school students who were consistently misbehaving and not living up to their potential. I would say that there is nothing that I can do to punish you in the way that life will punish you when you approach the world and say, here I am, give me what's coming, and you get nothing because you have not created any opportunities for yourself. I can't speak for women because I'm not a woman, but for men, that is certainly very true. So going back to our drug situation here. So this impression that people have of who they want to be, they want to be the big guy in the gym, but they can't live up to it because they're constantly training incorrectly because of these problems. They have this misconception around strength and muscle. So the classic example is going back to the Dorian row. Guys will row the same as Dorian, but be half his size. At some point along the journey, they have to stop and think, what's going on? Why am I rowing 4 plates like Dorian did and I'm nowhere near his size? Surely that has to occur to them at some point. And when it does, when the penny drops, when the realization hits in all of these things, that's when they can turn to drugs. And we know that more and more these days, certainly it's thought that rather than traditionally where people would align themselves with classes, like upper class, middle class, lower class, nowadays people align themselves more with social status and principles. Status comes from their place in the world in the endeavor that they personally align with and use to judge their accomplishments. So you could be the most broke, hopeless guy in the world, but if you're in the gym and you are the top dog there, you are the biggest, you are the leanest, and that is where you derive all of your pleasure, you can go home a happy man, at least for a while, because you align yourself with your social status in the endeavor that you judge yourself on. So you can allow yourself to be happy. I have seen this phenomenon in gyms all over the country. What bridges the reality of your status in the world, what can bridge that is the drugs. And I do believe that is one of the reasons why there are more and more people these days resorting to drugs rather than fixing their solutions with knowledge and also just realistic goals. Because look at this now, look at where we are. We are in 2022. The internet is rife with great information. I think another thing that happens is once they take these the drugs, they forget the role that the drugs played into the progression. So going back to the example of Dorian, this guy will be going along swearing that the Dorian method, the one set approach, is the best thing ever and it is the way. And not only is he tied to the method, but he's tied to the whole ideology behind it. Now, when it comes to a certain point, 5, 10 years, and he's not seeing that he's getting the same level of results as what he expects to get, drugs can bridge that gap. And when they do, it becomes very easy to forget the role of the drugs and just to focus on the method. See, I told you guys, the Dorian method is the one all along. I knew it. All you need to do is one set to failure, guys. That's why I'm big and strong. That's what did it. And when it comes to getting ready for a bodybuilding show, they pop the fat burners and whatever else, and then they get lean. I do believe that is behind every one of these fake natties is a sob story of a young boy who could not fulfill the standards of his own expectation. This also doesn't just restrict itself to bodybuilding. This also applies to other areas like surgery. I fully believe that most people really have no idea of what their original intentions are behind the actions that they do. So the drugs they take, the surgery they take, I don't believe many people really understand what their underlying reasons are. I think a lot of those reasons are buried so deep in the subconscious, it would take months of meditation to bring them to the surface. Anyway, thank you for joining me on that journey of philosophy, I guess. I want to go back to what we're talking about. So the problem we're solving, the specific problem we're solving is, I've summed it up into 4 categories. Form degradation, that's the first thing. Poor mind muscle, longer and longer intraset rest periods, and also worse, usually quickening rep cadence. So there's faster reps, more lifting more explosively to get the weight up, rather than just allowing you to feel the muscle stretch and contract. I've summed the issues up into these 4, as in this is how people really cheat their growth. Now, one more point before we look at sort of the solutions. How does this actually occur? I think one of the reasons is the ego, as is, again, tied up into that whole representation of self thing. But I don't think that's the only thing. So I don't want to just put it all on big egos. I also think there are genuine reasons. I think some people have a misguided attempt at progression. So again, the Dorian disciple who rose more than Dorian, but is just built like a blob. That's an example of that. Also, a misguided interpretation of strength standards. I think when it comes to strength standards, I'm still a believer in strength standards. I think they're very useful. However, if you interpret strength standards that you're going to get them no matter what the method, that's not the true intention anyway. The strength standards should be accomplished in the same form as what is most valuable for bodybuilding. And finally, a misguided interpretation of training style. And that is this whole idea of just get stronger. Again, nothing particularly wrong with the sentiment, but if it's done in a way which perverts the form, the mind-muscle connection, the cadence, then it's not productive for muscle growth. Because as we know, muscle growth is induced via muscular tension. If our progression circumvents all of these things, it's not good. So, solutions. Finally. Solutions are, firstly, primarily to drop the weight. Now, you have to drop the weight and decide on the form you're going to use moving forward. You're going to correct any major form flaws. The goal is to induce stress on the muscle, not to take it away. So if you're cheating by doing partial reps, by having the spotter help you on every single, you've missed the point. If you're cheating to put more stress on your muscles, particularly like the back, okay, there's an argument to be made there. Next thing is decide on the range of motion you're going to use. Okay, decide on that. Whatever is best for you. I generally tend to prefer a longer range of motion, a large range of motion. Next up is enhance the mind-muscle connection. You should be able to feel the target muscle working. Now, I'm not going to say anything ridiculous, put all the stress on target muscle if you're doing a compound, because clearly that's not true. But you should at least feel the muscle that you're intending to damage work. Next thing is correct the rep cadence. If you've been lifting more and more explosively, using more and more ballistic movements to get the weight up, stop that. Induce more stress on the muscle. And one final tip is strategic uses of pauses can really enhance the mind-muscle connection. So if you're pausing correctly, like pausing at the chest, for example, with your chest at full stretch, that's a good way to enhance mind-muscle connection. I personally find pausing at the top of a shoulder press also helps me. Pausing at the bottom of squatting movements also help. Right, folks, so that was a pretty long video, almost half an hour, and a look at something called periodic weight resets. So that is this idea that every now and again, if you feel like your form has just gotten away from you, or you're not quite getting what you want from the form that you're using and the weight you're using, drop the weight, correct all the factors that we've talked about today, and then slowly build back up to where you were previously, and you'll be bigger for the same weight. That's a pretty good deal. More bang for your buck. It's fantastic. And I also did a bit of a deep dive into drug culture, certainly as I see it in the UK. All right, folks, I would welcome your comments if you have made it this far, and I thank you for your continued support. I will call it there. Peace out.